Welcome. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build this thing up, giving you an instant reaction after the Packers edge out the Indianapolis Colts 23-19 in the preseason in Indianapolis. Final score, don't really care about the wins, loss, total points scored. Obviously, you'd rather score something than get skunked. But the Packers did win 23-19. End of the game was really bizarre. On a fourth down, Indianapolis with a pass up the near sideline, and could have been a touchdown, could have been a catch out at the one, could have been incomplete. They ruled it incomplete, and Green Bay took over, and that was it. Pulled down the curtains on it, and the Packers win 23-19. Just want to go over a few things that stood out, and then I'll have a second look and maybe a second video. It is the preseason, so probably not, but I guess the potential after I rewatch to record another video with more findings. But this is kind of just a quick hit, instant reaction, what sort of stood out to us, offense, defense, special teams, all that for Green Bay. Want to start with injuries. Baron Sorrell, rookie out of Texas, left with a knee injury, hobbled off the field. Omar Brown was on a cart with an oxygen mask. They said it was a chest injury. And I don't know about Marshawn Lloyd. It looked like he was nicked up after I think it was after the catch on the near sideline on the wheel route. Had like a 33-yard reception. I like Marshawn Lloyd. If he can stay healthy, I truly believe he will have a role in this offense that shines at times, that plays a prominent role in the offense. He's not going to overtake Josh Jacobs. He's not going to be a bell cow running back with Josh Jacobs in the fold, but as a change of pace sort of guy on the offense for Green Bay. I'm telling you, if Marshawn Lloyd can stay healthy, third-round pick out of USC a year ago, rookie campaign derailed by numerous injuries, ended with appendicitis last winter. If he's healthy and good to go, I think he adds an immense amount of value to this offense with just sort of a change of pace from what Josh Jacobs brings to the table. But it looked like he was nicked up. I can't remember. I'll obviously figure it out when I go back and watch. I thought he came back in after it looked like he was shaken up in that first half. I thought he came back in for at least one more play, but we'll have to go back and watch that. Let's start with kind of a, off the beaten path route. I thought Taylor Algersma looked pretty damn good. Had a touchdown pass where he just absolutely zipped one, threaded the needle on the defense to Ben Sims. It was called back for a penalty. Penalties were the name of the game in the first half for Green Bay. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But I'm watching Taylor Algersma, and, obviously transitioning from the Canadian game where he was playing 12-on-12. We know NFL is 11-on-11. The field in Canada when he's playing 12-on-12 is wider. It's a bigger field that they play on. So there's different things that he's having to change to, let alone making the change from playing in Canada. And it wasn't the CFL. It wasn't the Canadian Football League. But playing in Canada and then coming over to the National Football League. Obviously, there's a lot of things. There's probably a million things going through the head of Taylor Algersma as he tries to settle in. And, one of the deficiencies in his game that's just going to have to get cleaned up over time, and it'll get cleaned up with practice reps, not game reps necessarily, as training camp continues on. He needs to get rid of the ball a hell of a lot quicker. The game's probably moving 1,000 miles per hour for him, but at times it's like taking too long to go through progressions and make a read and make a decision. And it's fine. Every quarterback has that happen once in a while. For Algersma, I've noticed, in this game particularly, because he only had, that, I think it was one series against New York a week ago, and he got, he was first up after Malik Willis in this game for the Packers against the Colts. Just has to, and it'll come with time, it'll come with reps, it'll come with practice, it'll come with comfortability, it'll come with trust for his offensive line. But Algersma, he just needs to, it's a quick reaction league. You gotta make decisions quick, rapidly, on the fire. And I thought it's still the game's moving fast for him while his progressions and his reads and getting rid of the ball is slow at times. But he's got an arm. Like, we saw that, and he's got confidence, and he's got an immense amount of faith in himself. Like, when he was tucking and running the ball, when nothing was open downfield, and we saw that on a couple of occasions, this dude was like lowering his shoulder to truck a defender. And I'm sure Matt LaFleur isn't necessarily thrilled about that from the perspective of you open yourself up to getting injured as a quarterback. You don't get hit too often, and now you're in the open field trying to lower your shoulder on a defender. But the other side of that is you don't want to take away the competitiveness from this dude. I was elated that Algersma got the first look after Malik Willis. I had mentioned last week, I think with Sean Clifford, you kind of know what you got. And look, Clifford had a nice touchdown run on a read option to put Green Bay up late. Passing-wise, not much to write home about, but had a couple of nice runs, including the touchdown drive. The touchdown run that ended up being the game winner for Green Bay. But with Clifford, you know what you're going to get. And so I thought it made more sense, and I believe it even more now. But I said last week in a video, if you're going to keep a third quarterback, and it be for the practice squad, because I don't think Green Bay is going to keep 3 quarterbacks on the final 53-man roster. I think it makes more sense to do it with Algersma because there's an unknown, there's a mystery. How much can we develop? How much can we get out of him? You know, I'm not saying the guy's going to become an all-pro or that he's even going to become a starting quarterback. I think both of those ideas are pretty far-fetched, but could he be a really good backup quarterback in the NFL for a few years? Maybe, right? And we just don't know. And I think with Sean Clifford, his opportunity came last year. You know, Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt were battling for the backup quarterback job. Green Bay exited the summer, and Goody looked around, and Matt LaFleur looked around, and, you know, they didn't directly say this, but it was like, we don't have a backup. So they go out, they trade a 7th-round pick for Malik Willis. Malik Willis shines in his role as the backup quarterback. To me, last year was the chance for Sean Clifford to grab a hold of the backup quarterback spot, grab a hold of a role and identity on this team, and he just couldn't do it. And it's, you know, it's the nature of the beast. So I look at this time around, and, you know, Sean Clifford's still floating around. He's on the roster, and he got the last couple of possessions, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. But I think you know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get with Sean Clifford, and it's not good enough to be a backup quarterback in the NFL at this point in time in his career. So knowing that, why not give Algersma the practice squad spot or a practice squad spot, because you don't have to have one for the quarterback, and see what his development looks like throughout the course of this year. So I said it last week. I said all of that last week, or most of it, and it sort of reaffirmed in my mind just watching him today. Again, he's got an arm. He's fearless. We see that with the decisions he makes throwing the ball, trying to thread a needle. Like, he has a lot of arm talent. So still needs to work on going through progressions, getting it out a lot quicker. But I like Algersma. I like what I saw. I guess we can, you know, I don't have this necessarily in my mind mapped out, but we can talk about the running backs too. Amar Johnson had another touchdown run. He had the lone touchdown for Green Bay on a beautiful run against New York. This one was it an 8-9 yard touchdown run, something like that. And Israel Abanaconda had a touchdown. Both of these guys, to me, could be competing for one practice squad spot. You look at the running back position for Green Bay. Josh Jacobs is a lock. Marshawn Lloyd's a lock. And then it's like Chris Brooks could be your third down back, your best pass blocking running back. So that holds a lot of value. He can play teams for Rich Bisaccia. That holds some value. But I'm watching Emmanuel Wilson today, and I think he was the one, he coughed one up, had a fumble for Green Bay. But at other times when he gets the ball, it's like right now he is your, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Like right now, Emmanuel Wilson is your second best, like, pure runner at the running back position. I think Marshawn Lloyd can become that, but he's not that right now. And I mean, I'm sure it's in the back of everyone's mind, like the injuries from last year, and is that going to linger? Is that going to be a problem? I think Emmanuel Wilson is probably your second best pure runner at the position right now, behind Josh Jacobs. So do you keep, because again, Lloyd isn't going anywhere, Jacobs isn't going anywhere. Do you keep Brooks and Wilson? And really, unless there's an injury with Jacobs or Lloyd, Wilson probably doesn't have a role within the offense, but he could be on the roster, whereas Brooks could be maybe a third down back, or Brooks could be a guy that you bring in situationally, also adds the versatility to play special teams. Do you keep 4? And so that's why, you know, as you trickle it down, you look at Amar Johnson, and he's done everything he possibly can through 2 preseason games. And Abanaconda, touchdown run, 4 kickoff returns, made a tackle on special teams in this game against Indianapolis. Like, you talk about versatility, there you go. Kick return, made a tackle on special teams, had a touchdown run. And he's so quick and shifty with his cuts and his change of pace. I like Abanaconda, but when you talk about the 53-man roster, I don't think there's a spot, just with all the depth Green Bay has, for either Johnson or Abanaconda. But again, when you look at it in tiers, and it's making the final 53-man roster, making the practice squad is the tier right below that, I believe Johnson and Abanaconda could be battling for one, and hell, maybe both of them make the practice squad. But I would say, as things stack up now, I'd be surprised. Yeah, I'd be surprised if one of them, at least one of them, didn't make the practice squad for Green Bay. 53-man roster, I just don't see it. I don't see it. You're not going to carry 5 running backs. And if you carry 4, it's going to be Jacobs, Lloyd, Emmanuel Wilson, and Chris Brooks. It just is. But practice squad's certainly a possibility for both of those guys, and they offer a different game. You know, Amar Johnson's more of a bowling ball, sort of a short, wider, stout kind of running back, and he wants to run people over. And that bowling ball mentality, where Abanikanda, you know, not necessarily a big frame, but a more trim frame than Amar Johnson, quicker. You know, there's different gears to his game. Andy, like I said, he offers you the ability to play on special teams in multiple roles. Kick coverage, punt coverage if you need him, I guess. Kickoff return, and then running back. So I think those guys could be battling for one practice squad spot, which is incredibly valuable, you know, if you can't make the 53-man roster. And Abanikanda stood out to me, so I thought that was good. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciative of all the support as we climb. I said I want 200 subscribers. That was the goal by the end of training camp. We're at 230-something right now. I think it's 232. I want 1,000. That's the goal. And I have different ideas for videos and concepts and ideas to do throughout the regular season and hopefully a postseason run for the Packers. So, yeah, the goal is 1,000. So, please click the subscribe button if you haven't already. I seriously always appreciative of the support. What the kicker, his names are escaping my mind, and I should have wrote it down. McNamee? Is that what it is? McNamee? I think it's McNamee. It was giving me Anders Carlson flashbacks. Missed a field goal, missed an extra point. It's cute to have, you know, the second kicker, and, you know, you can rest Brandon McManus in a preseason game. But I saw enough of that. Cool story, right? Cool idea having the second kicker. A lot of teams, most teams, I think almost every team probably carries at least 2 kickers in the preseason. But, yeah, there's no threat to McManus' job. He got the deal in free agency. Obviously, this wasn't like a kicking competition for Green Bay. But I've seen enough. Like, if possible, McManus, can you just come back for the game against Seattle next week? Because I had to see a missed field goal and a missed extra point, and I was sweating. I was thinking about Anders Carlson flashbacks, and not good, you know. And as Packer fans, fair to say, spoiled for a very, very long time with Mason Crosby. And even before that, like Ryan Longwell was freaking awesome for a long stretch for Green Bay before he went to the purple and gold with Minnesota. And there was that little hiccup, that transition from Crosby to, hey, who's going to be next? And you thought it was going to be Anders Carlson. It wasn't. It sucks. Didn't work out. I had flashbacks today when I'm seeing a missed extra point and a missed field goal get duck snorted to the left. So if possible, you know, would love to see. I know it's the preseason, but I don't need any nightmares. Get McManus back out there next week. Isaiah Simmons. Very, 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 very interesting player for this roster. Is he going to make the 53-man roster? If he does, is it just special teams and depth piece at inside linebacker? Is inside linebacker going to get to a point where it doesn't work out, but they like his athleticism and they could try to switch him somewhere else, like safety maybe or slot? He offers that word, versatility, a lot of it, but Isaiah Simmons, I hate saying it, but Isaiah Simmons, his performance against Indianapolis is why you cannot go box score hunting. Isaiah Simmons led the team in tackles with nine total tackles in the game against the Colts, but he looked lost most of the afternoon. Maybe I shouldn't say most. That might be a little harsh. He looked lost much of the afternoon. I feel like that's less than most, right? He looked lost on many occasions, I'll say, in that game against Indianapolis. Led the team in tackles, so some people might be like, oh, whoa, Isaiah Simmons, look at that. 9 total tackles, popping out. That's why you can't look on the box score. I would say it was not a great game for Isaiah Simmons. Plus this, Green Bay rested almost all their starters today. Was it all? Yeah, Green Bay rested most of its starters today. Isaiah Simmons played so far into that game that it almost makes you think, like, does this not bode well for his chances to make the roster that he's playing this deep into the second half? That was my thought, not, hey, Isaiah Simmons, look at this, tackle here, tackle there when you're looking at the box score. You're like, hey, keep him in. Like, I don't know if it bodes well for his chances that they kept him in because he was struggling and just didn't. Again, I mentioned with Al Gersma, like the game is probably moving at 1,000 miles per hour for him coming over from Canada, 12v12, now 11v11 on a smaller, more condensed field, and he's trying to transition to life in the National Football League. Like, that is a lot. That is a full plate. And you're playing the most important damn position in quarterback. Isaiah Simmons is another guy just on the defensive side, and I've loved that Green Bay's trying to hone in on one position for him. And for them, it's inside linebacker, and he can play some special teams as well. But the game looks like it's moving 1,000 miles per hour. It does. It just does. He looks lost out there way too frequently. I genuinely wonder with Isaiah Simmons if his roster spot could come down to Bisaccia putting a little bug in LaFleur's ear and being like, hey, I know it hasn't looked great for Simmons so far, and maybe he turns that around. There's still some time left, right? A couple of weeks before training camp ends, and when you turn the page to week 1 against Detroit, and there's one preseason game left, and we really have yet to see who will play in that game for Green Bay, but Isaiah Simmons, I would assume, would be out there, right? He's not a bona fide starter by any stretch of the imagination. You think your inside linebacker starters are Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper. But I wonder with Simmons, could it come down to Rich Bisaccia seeing enough value on special teams that he tries to put a bug in LaFleur's ear? I'm not saying that this is the case. I'm wondering if, Halfley and LaFleur and the rest of the brain trust and the rest of the staff have discussions when they're cutting down the roster, and it comes to Simmons, and it's like, hey, it hasn't been good in preseason. It has not been that good. And if Bisaccia could still see some value, enough value that he tries to, lure it in for him to be on the roster and maybe in a prominent special teams role for Green Bay and wearing a couple of different hats, but not good for Isaiah Simmons. And again, it's an example of why you can't look at the box score if you didn't watch the game. Leading tackler, yes. Was it good? Was the product good from Isaiah Simmons? No. Just a couple other notes I had as we finish up. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Isaiah Nair, fascinating profile, big wide receiver, long strides, good speed. Green Bay scooped him up a couple of weeks ago. He got behind the defense twice. I don't know if you remember that. Again, why you can't go box score hunting. Hicks had 2 catches, 2 nice plays, both called back for penalties, not on him. I think both of them were on Anthony Belton. And so Hicks doesn't get credited with those 2 receptions for some decent yardage, especially on the one that would normally show up in the box score. Instead, it's invisible. It doesn't show up because of the penalties. Again, it's why you can't just, look at the piece of paper and if you didn't watch the game and try to come up with what happened. But Nair got behind the defense on 2 occasions and was the victim of underthrown footballs by the quarterback. Again, you talk about making a roster. Probably not. Wide receiver room is crammed as is because you have, I don't want to beat a dead horse because I brought this up before with different angles, but we know at wide receiver, Green Bay has Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, Savion Williams. That's 5 out of the gate. It's 6 when you get Christian Watson back in the mix. It's 7 and 8 if you think about McCole Hardman and Malik Heath as being in that next tier outside of those top 6 that I named, and then you get to some other names like Hicks and like Isaiah Nair. But could there be a practice squad spot for someone like Nair? I think potentially. Just his size, athleticism, the long strides, the speed. And again, got behind the defense twice today. And you could make a case like this dude could have had at least 1 touchdown in this game because one was on a ball that Sean Clifford threw down the near sideline and just slightly underthrown. It wasn't like it was like a woeful pass by Sean Clifford, but it was underthrown, and the defender never turned around. I thought there was a chance for PI to get called, but Nair didn't adjust and come back. And, if it's underthrown, we see pass interference called when the receiver comes back and just slams into the defender when they don't turn around. Nair came back, but not enough to probably warrant the flag. But he got behind the defense twice, and I think, it's easy even for me to, not notice or not remember or not recall something like that. But when Green Bay goes and they break down the film and they look back at everything in the film room with the team, they're going to be like, look at Nair, man, making moves, making plays, just, the victim of a couple of underthrown footballs. And I want to finish up with 2 points. 11 penalties for, what was it? I think it was 85 yards. 11 penalties for 85 yards in the first half was absolutely sickening. I was texting a couple of buddies. I was getting texts from buddies saying, I can't watch this. I need to turn it off. And I was like, it's just the preseason. I hear you, though. I was complaining to a couple of my buddies, this is I was saying, I know it's the preseason, I know it's the backups, but this is so undisciplined. There were 11 penalties in the first half. There were 11 penalties, not 11 penalties. There were 11 penalties in the first half. I believe 5 were pre-snap. 5 were on Anthony Belton, and we'll get to him in a second. But Green Bay cleaned it up way more in the second half. They were still penalized on a couple of occasions, but not nearly as much. The penalties that all actually shifted and started getting called on Indianapolis on offense and defense in the second half. But it was so bad in that first 30 minutes for Green Bay. It seemed like every time they had a play on offense that went for like a chunk play, not like a 2-3 yard run. It was like, where's the laundry on the field? Like, there's got to be a flag. And then on defense, it was like if there was an incomplete pass or something, you'd be like, is there going to be holding, illegal contact? Like, you were just expecting it because there were so many penalties. You think about 11 for 85 is a ton for a full game. That's what they had in the first half. But they buckled down in the second half, figured it out. And then I mentioned Anthony Belton. Keep in mind this will probably be a redshirt year for him, right? You've got either Rasheed Walker or Jordan Morgan at left tackle. You have Aaron Banks at left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, Sean Ryan likely at right guard, maybe Jordan Morgan into the mix if Rasheed Walker wins the left tackle job, but they want to squeeze Morgan in somewhere. And then you have the freshly inked to a big boy contract extension, Zach Tom, at right tackle. So it's likely going to be a redshirt year for Anthony Belton, even though he was a second-round pick out of North Carolina State this past April for Green Bay. You see the bad with the penalties. And there was one was a late hit out of bounds on Belton, just like ragdoll shoving a defender from behind. I kind of like the physicality. Green Bay, I think for too long, has worn the label that some have given them as, they play too passive. They play too soft sometimes. I saw that Anthony Belton penalty, and if it was the regular season, I'd be really pissed off. For the preseason, it cost you 15 yards, but I'm like, dude's got an edge to him. Dude's got maybe a little anger built up. Maybe he plays a little nasty, a little angry. And so I wasn't thrilled with it, but I wasn't overly mad about it. But 5 penalties in the first half is where you look at Anthony Belton and you're like, holy crap, that's not good. Go back and watch the Amar Johnson touchdown. Go back and watch the touchdown run by Amar Johnson. Anthony Belton, quite literally at the snap of the ball, just pushes his assignment, his defender, 4, 5, 6, just pushes him 4, 5, 6 yards back. Amar Johnson runs right through there, and you're like, okay, this dude has just natural strength. This dude is a monster. And that's where you realize, like, hey, he's probably going to be a little bit of a project. Probably won't see him on the field in 2025 unless there's at least one injury, right? He's going to be a backup maybe at tackle and guard, potentially. Played right tackle and right guard in this game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to go back and look again. But the bad is the first half where you see the 5 penalties. The really, really good is that Amar Johnson touchdown run where he is just paving a hole and putting his defender in the turf. Now, I don't think he actually put the defender in the turf, but he is just backing him up 1 yard at a time as that play started to unravel. So I'm still pretty smitten on Anthony Belton for the long term, for the long run, as a starting piece on this offensive line. Probably, if you want to deem it like a red shirt year, as a rookie this season. Those are my takeaways. Let me know what you guys and gals think. Packers won 23-19, but those were the main takeaways from the game for Green Bay against Indianapolis. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please click the subscribe button. We'll have videos throughout the week before Green Bay plays Seattle. We'll see you next time.